Hey folks, and welcome to Truck King. Today we're taking a look at the brand new 2023 Mazda CX-90. Now you've probably heard of the Mazda CX-9, and this is not that. There's a ton of things here that Mazda has changed, and I'm going to tell you all about it right now. Let's start with the walk around. So under the hood of the new CX-90 is a brand new 3.3 liter inline six turbocharged engine. Now there are different outputs available. We have the higher output version right here today, which makes 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. And all of that is sent through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, one of the big selling points on this new CX-90 is the tow rating. You can now pull 5,000 pounds with this vehicle, which is really good for this class. Now, the CX-90 you're looking at in this video is a GTP, which is just one trim down from the top trim, and I think it looks really sharp. You got this nice chrome and wrapping around the grille. That's now the Mazda kind of family grille. It's been adopted by all of its vehicles. From the rear 3/4 angle, I will say it looks a little bit minivan-ish, a little bubbly, but that's just my eyeballs. Why don't you go in the comments right now and let me know what you think of the styling on this new CX-90. Time for the slip test here with the Mazda CX-90. So we got out our handy dandy rollers and we've put 3 rollers underneath this thing. But unlike what we're normally used to, which is putting 2 in the front and 1 in the back, this thing has 2 in the back and 1 in the front because it is rear wheel drive biased. The engine here is longitudinally mounted and it sends its power back before going through a clutch system and coming back to the front wheels. So in this case, we want to see how the CX-90 deals with slip and gets power to that front passenger wheel. That's the only one in contact with the driveway. So we're going to leave it in normal mode. I'll start accelerating and we'll see how long the system takes to reroute the power and get us off these rollers. The last thing I'll say is, in fairness to the CX-90, there is an off-road mode, and if I put it in that, it would send the power forward right away. But we don't want to try that out. I want to see what happens in normal mode if this thing was to experience slip. So here we go, let's see what happens. Got it in drive, normal mode, driving. Okay, it's figuring it out. Oh, it's taking a while. It doesn't know what to do. Oh, here we go. Now it's thinking. Now I'm giving it a little more gas. It can't get power to that front passenger side tire. Interesting. Okay, braking. That was more than enough time to give it a chance to do its thing, and it didn't do it. So now let's be fair to the CX-90 and try it in off-road mode. Maybe that'll get the power to that wheel. So switching to off-road mode now. Now it's in off-road mode. Let's see if that does it. Here we go. Yep. Well, there you go. That's the difference. Put it in off-road mode and the vehicle knows you're going to want power going to all 4 wheels right away, so it routed that power. But that was interesting. In normal mode, it just could not figure out how to get the power down to that front passenger side tire.
Okay, folks, let's see if Steve will fit in this thing.
And that's important for this CX-90 because it's one of the reasons it exists. This is bigger than the CX-9, so we have more space inside for passengers. Let's see how that bears out. Now, this is 39 inches of second row legroom, and it's enough for me. I mean, it's kind of tight, but this is my seating position, so it's all the way back. My knees aren't too tall, and then I'm just touching the roof, but I do have enough headroom, and of course, I stand at 6'2". So absolutely big enough back here for a full-size adult. Now, when it comes to amenities, we do have the sunshades there, especially important if you have little kids in rear-facing car seats. While I mention that, I'll also say I have lower latch connections on both of these captain chairs and then one lower latch in the rear passenger side. Now finally, down here in the center, I have heated seats, USB-C ports, and full HVAC controls in the second row as well. And now I'll go climb in the third and see what that's like. So to get back there, these seats push forward, and I can climb in. Now this is 30 inches of rear seat legroom, and Well, this seat didn't come back too far because it's quite adjustable, but I actually do have enough legroom here. The issue is how tall my knees are. I'm not sure you can see it, but my knees are way up here. They feel like they're up in my chest. It's rather uncomfortable. And then surprisingly, I actually have just enough headroom. That's constantly been an issue in Mazda products, and specifically the CX-9. They usually rake really hard at the rear end, so you lose the headroom in the third row, but the CX-90 doesn't do that as much as others. So yeah, I could actually sit back here for a little bit of time and be comfortable. So maybe a full-size adult, smaller than full-size, or teenagers and kids, absolutely. Now when it comes to amenities, I also have a USB-C port, I have cup holders, and I have my own little personal HVAC vent down here, which is really cool in the third row. You don't often get that. So not a bad third row here in the CX-90. Now let's see if I can squeeze out. And squeeze. Let's look at the storage here on the CX-90. Now I will say this is the type of third row vehicle where you do kind of have to choose whether you want cargo space or space for people. Behind this third row is only 15 cubic feet of space, so it's just not a ton back here. But of course, if you don't need the third row, simply tumble it manually, and you are now left with 40 cubic feet of space, so quite a bit of storage. Now when it comes to features on the back here, I do have a 12-volt outlet right there, which is kind of nice. I also have these hooks up here for grocery bags, and then maybe the coolest feature is this floor lifts up and it reveals this big tray. So inside the tray you have a jack, you have some tools, and then the whole tray also lifts out to reveal your spare tire. I'll just do it enough so you can see. So you got your spare down there. Oh wow, it looks like the subwoofer is actually mounted right there too, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, I like this idea of having this kind of neat storage tray so you can organize your stuff. And then when you're all done with it, you put that back on top and everything tucks away nicely. That's a pretty slick solution. Now let's go for a drive. All right, folks, now here we are driving in the CX-90, and this is the most powerful production engine that Mazda has ever put into a vehicle. So I've got it in sport mode. I've got an empty road in front of me. Let's floor it. Okay. It's not bad. It felt like it had a hard hit off the line, and then once it upshifted into second and third, it felt okay. I'm not going to say it felt crazy powerful, and yes, it is the most powerful production engine they've ever made, but of course the CX-90, this is not a small, lightweight vehicle, so that results in just kind of decent acceleration, not crazy power. Now that I've done that and put my foot to the floor, I'm going to go ahead and reset my fuel economy because I'm going on a long drive right now, so I'll also be able to report back on the real-world fuel economy of this engine. We'll go ahead and take it out of sport mode, we'll put it into normal mode, and at the end of the trip, of course, I'll report back on what the real-world fuel economy was on the CX-90. Let's talk a little bit more about the CX-90. So getting into any Mazda vehicle, and yes, here in Canada, we do call it a Mazda. I've been calling it a Mazda because that's what they say south of the border in the United States. My brain at this point just kind of crisscrosses them. But yeah, Mazda here and Mazda there. So there you go. Anyways, this Mazda CX-90, one of the questions is, well, why does it exist? And I think most dealers and customers were saying, look, the CX-9 is okay, but we want something a little bit bigger, and you can see evidence of this in other brands. For instance, the Subaru Ascent. Well, you already saw here, the third row here is actually not too bad, and that's one of the main reasons I think they built this vehicle, was to get that. But then I really appreciate that the tow rating of 5,000 pounds also shows up for the CX-90. Now, one of the reasons they're able to do that is the layout of the powertrain. Rear wheel drive is better for towing because if you have a bunch of tongue weight back there, you want it pushing down on your drive wheels rather than lifting up on your front axle, which is your drive wheels in a front wheel drive setup. So this is a good setup for towing. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to tow with it. We might try and fix that soon and get one back, maybe tow a travel trailer or something. But for now, I can just feel, because of the setup and because of the number, it's probably going to be one of the better towing vehicles in the category. outside of that, when you get into any Mazda, the story is always the same. Even though this is a big family-friendly 3-row crossover, they talk about handling, they talk about how much goes into making this thing still fun to drive. And that's another thing that the powertrain lends itself to. When you have a rear-wheel drive powertrain with a front engine, you get better balance, because normally in a front-wheel drive setup, you have a lot of stuff like the transmission, all of that's up in front on that front axle, so the weight balance is way off. Here, we're much closer to a 50-50 weight balance, which helps with handling. Now, beyond that, Mazda also puts into this vehicle a system when you're in the middle of a corner, it will actually brake the inside rear wheel just to help the vehicle sort of stay nice and flat and planted through that corner. It's something they developed for sports cars, but hey, they brought it to the CX-90 as well because they want this thing to handle well. And I'll say absolutely it does. For such a large vehicle, for again, a vehicle which in my opinion has no real business, handling well, this thing is actually pretty fun to drive. Even down to the nice contoured steering wheel here. It feels nice and sporty in your hands. The response is direct and quick. There's a bit of body roll. It's not like it's a stiff suspension, and I appreciate that too. You don't have to be uber stiff to have good handling, because then you can still allow for some comfort, and in just everyday regular driving, this thing absolutely is quiet and comfortable as well. I'll mention the interior. So the model we're in here is one step down from the top trim, but it feels absolutely luxurious. That's another thing Mazda has done. It's sort of rebranded as an upscale luxury brand, sort of even at base levels. But up here in this GTP trim, this is gorgeous. I love the leather. And I have to tell you, the thing that jumped out at me immediately is that there is no touchscreen and there are no touch-sensitive buttons. Everything in this CX-90 is a real physical button or knob. And in a world where most brands have moved away from that, or it's a blend kind of touchscreen and some buttons, Mazda says, nope, we are staying, well, traditional and giving you physical controls. And I have to say, I really like it. We've been in a lot of Hyundai, Kia products, and sorry to pick on them, but those two brands specifically have really moved towards getting rid of most of their buttons, and I don't like it. Having a physical kind of muscle memory feel to grabbing these buttons is nice. And I honestly do believe it's safer not having a touchscreen. I'm never fumbling around over here. On some cars I absolutely am, because there's so much in these screens now. So just for safety's sake, I like the way this interior is laid out, and I really appreciate Mazda keeps all the buttons. I think because they're that enthusiast-focused brand, that's what they want you to focus on as well, the drive, rather than the internal electronics. I'll also tell you right now, I do have a head-up display. That's another thing I really like, and I think every brand should really get one. It's a really important safety feature, having a head-up display. So. Other features in here include wireless charging for my cell phone. I do have adaptive cruise control with lane keep assist, again with nice buttons right here on the steering wheel to control it. I also have a big panoramic sunroof up there above my head if you're into big sunroofs. So yeah, I think here in the interior, feels nice, comfortable cruising vehicle. Mazda really nailed it here. I can't wait to actually put a trailer behind this thing. But next up, I'll report back on the fuel economy. As you can see, I'm on the highway now. So when I come to the end of my drive, I'll let you know how much fuel this inline six is burning. And we just pulled in at the end of our long trip, and we managed 8.1 liters per 100 kilometers. That was mostly highway kilometers, doing about 100 kilometers an hour. And we actually did about just over 110 kilometers in total. So yeah, on the highway cruising, this engine's pretty efficient. I appreciate that. Well, folks, we've come to the end of this video. Now, I do think there's one big reason why you should consider the CX-90, because it's big. If you're looking to haul people comfortably or tow quite a bit, well then this CX-90 should absolutely be on your list. Well folks, that's it for this one. Now please go below into the comments, let me know what you think of this brand new model from Mazda. As always, while you're down below, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member, and then come right back here to the channel to see what we're testing next. See ya.